The opulent ballroom of the Burj Al Arab's royal suite shimmered with golden light as Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid prepared for the most crucial diplomatic dinner of his reign. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors inlaid with precious stones, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Dubai's glittering skyline. At 45, Sheikh Ahmed ruled one of the wealthiest emirates in the Gulf, controlling oil reserves worth over $200 billion and wielding influence that extended across international markets and global politics. Tonight's dinner would host representatives from 12 nations, all seeking partnerships in his ambitious Vision 2050 project, a revolutionary plan to transform his emirate into the world's leading hub for renewable energy and technological innovation. The guest list read like a directory of global power: oil ministers, tech billionaires, diplomatic envoys, and investment fund managers who controlled trillions in capital. But beneath the evening's glittering surface lay currents of political tension that could reshape the entire Middle East. Sheikh Ahmed's progressive policies had earned him powerful enemies among conservative factions who viewed his modernization efforts as threats to traditional power structures. His plans to reduce oil dependency and embrace Western technology had particularly angered extremist groups who saw him as a traitor to Islamic values. Security was unprecedented for the evening's gathering. The Sheikh's personal protection detail had swept the venue multiple times, background checks had been run on every staff member, and sophisticated detection equipment monitored for any possible threats. Yet despite these precautions, an atmosphere of barely contained anxiety pervaded the preparations. Amira Hassan moved quietly through the royal suite's preparation areas, ensuring that every surface gleamed with the perfection befitting such an important occasion. At 52, she had worked as head of housekeeping services for Dubai's most exclusive venues for 8 years, maintaining the immaculate standards required by clients who measured success in billions rather than millions. Her small frame and modest hijab made her nearly invisible to the wealthy guests who passed through these spaces, treating her as part of the decor rather than a human being worthy of notice. What none of the evening's distinguished guests could have imagined was that Amira Hassan possessed credentials that would have impressed even the most sophisticated diplomats in attendance. Born in Cairo to a family of scholars, she held advanced degrees in chemistry and pharmacology from Cairo University, where she had specialized in toxicology and forensic analysis. Her expertise in detecting poisons and chemical compounds had once made her one of Egypt's most respected forensic consultants, working with law enforcement agencies across the Middle East. But tragedy had forced Amira to abandon her professional career 12 years earlier. Her husband, Dr. Mahmoud Hassan, had been a prominent political activist who had spoken out against government corruption in Egypt. His assassination by unknown agents had not only shattered Amira's world, but made her a target for the same forces that had killed him. Fearing for her children's safety, she had fled Egypt with forged documents, eventually finding refuge in Dubai, where she could work anonymously while protecting her family from political retribution. For 8 years, Amira had cleaned the palaces and hotel suites of the wealthy, using her chemical knowledge only to ensure that cleaning products were properly mixed and surfaces were genuinely sanitized. She had deliberately chosen invisibility over recognition, safety over professional fulfillment, accepting work that utilized none of her education or expertise because it allowed her to provide for her children without attracting the attention of those who might harm her family. But tonight, as she prepared the royal suite for Sheikh Ahmed's crucial dinner, Amira's scientific training would prove more valuable than any security system or bodyguard detail. The dinner preparations had been supervised by Chef Marcel Dubois, a Michelin-starred culinary artist whose reputation for exquisite cuisine had made him the preferred caterer for high-level diplomatic events throughout the Gulf region. His team had spent 2 days crafting a menu that would showcase both traditional Emirati hospitality and international sophistication, with dishes representing each of the 12 nations whose representatives would attend. As Amira polished the crystal stemware that would hold vintage wines worth thousands of dollars per bottle, she observed the careful choreography of final preparations. Servers in pristine uniforms arranged place settings with mathematical precision. Sommelier experts prepared rare vintages in temperature-controlled storage, and security personnel made final sweeps of every corner where threats might hide. But it was her trained eye for chemical analysis that noticed something others had missed. While cleaning the service area adjacent to the main dining room, Amira observed one of the catering assistants, a young man named Khalil, whom she'd never seen before, handling the Sheikh's personal water glass with unusual care. Instead of simply filling it from the filtered water provided for all guests, Khalil appeared to be adding something from a small vial that he quickly concealed in his uniform pocket. Amira's pulse quickened as her forensic training kicked into high alert. The substance Khalil had added was nearly invisible, creating only the slightest change in the water's refractive properties that would be undetectable to anyone without her specialized knowledge. But to someone who had spent years analyzing suspicious substances in criminal investigations, the subtle alteration was as obvious as a flashing warning sign. Moving closer under the pretense of cleaning nearby surfaces, Amira managed to observe Khalil's technique more closely. The young man was clearly experienced in chemical handling, adding precise measurements that suggested professional training rather than amateur poisoning. More alarmingly, his behavior showed none of the nervousness typically associated with first-time killers. He moved with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this before. When Khalil briefly left the service area, Amira seized her opportunity to investigate further. Using cleaning cloths to avoid leaving fingerprints, she carefully examined the Sheikh's water glass, holding it up to the light to analyze the liquid's consistency and clarity. Her years of toxicology experience allowed her to identify subtle changes that indicated the presence of foreign substances, and what she saw confirmed her worst fears. The water contained traces of what appeared to be a sophisticated neurotoxin, likely derived from exotic plants or synthetic compounds that would be virtually undetectable by conventional testing. The concentration was precisely calculated to cause symptoms that would appear to be a heart attack or stroke, allowing the assassin to kill Sheikh Ahmed in front of dozens of witnesses while making his death appear natural. Amira's mind raced as she realized the implications of her discovery. This wasn't a simple assassination attempt by extremist groups or political enemies. This was a sophisticated operation that required insider knowledge, professional equipment, and access to rare toxins that suggested state-level resources. Someone with significant power and connections wanted Sheikh Ahmed dead, and they had planned his murder with meticulous attention to detail. The most chilling aspect of the plot was its timing. Sheikh Ahmed's death during a diplomatic dinner with international representatives would not only eliminate a progressive leader but create a massive scandal that could destabilize regional politics and derail the modernization projects that threatened various established interests. As guests began arriving for the evening's dinner, Amira faced an agonizing dilemma. Her discovery of the poisoning plot could save Sheikh Ahmed's life, but revealing her knowledge would expose her own background and potentially endanger her family if her true identity became known. Her years of anonymity had protected her children from the forces that had killed her husband, but speaking up now would thrust her back into the dangerous world of Middle Eastern politics, where speaking truth to power often carried deadly consequences. More practically, she had no proof of the poisoning beyond her own observations, no way to convince security personnel that a humble cleaning woman had detected a sophisticated assassination plot that their high-tech equipment had missed. Khalil could easily deny her accusations, and her word alone would likely be dismissed as the paranoid fantasy of an overwrought employee. But as Amira watched Sheikh Ahmed greeting his international guests with the warm hospitality for which he was famous, she knew she couldn't remain silent. This was a good man whose progressive leadership was improving millions of lives, whose death would not only be a personal tragedy but a catastrophe for regional development and international cooperation. The formal dinner began with traditional ceremonies and diplomatic speeches, as representatives from 12 nations offered toasts to cooperation, prosperity, and mutual understanding. Sheikh Ahmed moved gracefully through the proceedings, his natural charisma and genuine commitment to peace evident in every interaction with his guests. Amira positioned herself near the service area where she could observe both the dining room and Khalil's activities. The young assassin was playing his role perfectly, serving drinks and clearing dishes with the professional demeanor of an experienced catering assistant. But Amira's trained eye caught subtle signs that others missed. The way he tracked Sheikh Ahmed's movements, the tension in his shoulders as the meal progressed, and most tellingly, his careful attention to ensuring that the poisoned water glass remained in front of his target. As the main course was served, Sheikh Ahmed reached for his water glass, preparing to take a sip that would begin the process of his own death. Time seemed to slow as Amira watched the crystal glass move toward his lips, knowing that she had seconds to act before an assassination plot succeeded in front of dozens of international witnesses. Breaking every rule of diplomatic protocol and staff behavior, Amira rushed into the dining room, her voice carrying clearly across the elegant space as she spoke in urgent Arabic. Hadasam! La tashrab, innahu yahwil qatlak. That's poison, don't drink, he's trying to kill you. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Sheikh Ahmed froze with the glass halfway to his lips, his face registering shock and confusion at being interrupted by a cleaning woman speaking in Arabic. The international guests stared in bewilderment as the evening's careful dignity dissolved into chaos. But Khalil's reaction confirmed everything Amira had suspected. Instead of confusion or indignation at being falsely accused, the young man's face showed the cold calculation of a professional killer whose mission had been compromised. In one fluid motion, he dropped his serving tray and reached for something concealed in his jacket, clearly prepared to complete his assignment through more direct means. Sheikh Ahmed's security detail reacted with lethal efficiency, tackling Khalil before he could draw what later proved to be a ceramic knife designed to pass through metal detectors. As guards restrained the would-be assassin, Sheikh Ahmed carefully set down the water glass that had nearly become his death sentence. "Who are you?" Sheikh Ahmed asked Amira, his voice carrying a mixture of gratitude and amazement. "How did you know?" Amira felt her carefully constructed anonymity crumbling as dozens of powerful eyes focused on her with intense curiosity. "Your Highness, I am Amira Hassan. I work in housekeeping, but I have training in chemistry. I saw him add something to your water, something that would have made your death appear natural." The water glass was immediately secured for analysis, while Khalil underwent interrogation that would reveal the full scope of the assassination plot. But even as security protocols locked down the venue and investigations began, Sheikh Ahmed's attention remained focused on the small woman whose courage had saved his life. "Dr. Amira Hassan," he said slowly, his voice reflecting growing recognition. "I know that name. You were one of Egypt's leading forensic toxicologists before you disappeared 12 years ago. Your research on plant-based neurotoxins was considered groundbreaking." Amira's heart sank as she realized her secret identity had been exposed in front of international representatives, who might include agents of the same forces that had killed her husband. "Your Highness, I just wanted to prevent you from being harmed. I have no political agenda." But Sheikh Ahmed's response surprised everyone in the room. "Dr. Hassan, you didn't just save my life tonight. You prevented a catastrophe that would have destabilized our entire region. The courage you showed in speaking up, despite the personal risks, represents exactly the kind of moral leadership our world desperately needs." Over the following hours, as investigations revealed the full scope of the assassination conspiracy, Amira found herself at the center of a story that would reshape regional politics. Khalil's interrogation exposed a network of extremist cells working with foreign intelligence services to eliminate progressive Arab leaders who threatened established power structures. The poison itself proved to be a sophisticated compound derived from rare Australian sea snails, modified in laboratory conditions to create symptoms indistinguishable from natural cardiac arrest. The plot had been months in the planning, with Khalil infiltrating the catering company specifically to gain access to high-profile events where he could strike without suspicion. Most significantly, the investigation revealed that Sheikh Ahmed was just one target in a larger campaign aimed at assassinating modernist leaders throughout the Middle East. Amira's intervention had not only saved one life, but exposed a conspiracy that threatened regional stability and international cooperation. 3 months after the dinner that changed everything, Drive, Amira Hassan stood in her new laboratory at the Sheikh Ahmed Institute for Forensic Sciences, a cutting-edge research facility established to develop better methods for detecting political assassinations and chemical weapons attacks. Her expertise in toxicology had made her one of the most valued security consultants in the Gulf region, with governments throughout the Middle East seeking her advice on protecting their leaders from sophisticated poisoning attempts. But perhaps more importantly, Sheikh Ahmed had personally guaranteed her family's safety, providing them with diplomatic protection and new identities that freed them from the fear that had dominated their lives for 12 years. Her children were now enrolled in Dubai's finest schools, pursuing their own dreams without the shadow of their father's assassination hanging over their futures. "Dr. Hassan," Sheikh Ahmed said as he visited her laboratory for a briefing on the latest security developments, "I've been thinking about that night when you saved my life. What made you decide to speak up? You had everything to lose and nothing to gain." Amira looked up from the spectrometer, where she was analyzing suspicious samples from another potential threat case, her scientific equipment now serving to protect rather than prosecute. "Your Highness, my husband died because good people remained silent when evil people acted. I could not let that happen again, especially to someone whose leadership gives hope to millions of people. But you risked exposing yourself to the same forces that killed him." "Yes," Amira agreed, "but I learned something important that night. Hiding from evil doesn't make it go away. It only allows it to grow stronger. Sometimes we must choose courage over safety, truth over security." Sheikh Ahmed nodded, understanding that Amira's transformation from anonymous cleaning woman to world-renowned security expert represented more than just personal redemption. She had become a symbol of the power that ordinary people possess to change history when they choose to act with moral courage. "Your Arabic warning that night didn't just save my life," Sheikh Ahmed continued. "It reminded me that wisdom and courage come from unexpected sources, and that the people we overlook might be the ones best positioned to protect us from threats we can't see ourselves." 1 year after the assassination attempt, the annual Dubai Security Summit featured Drive, Amira Hassan as its keynote speaker, addressing an audience of international law enforcement officials, intelligence analysts, and security professionals from around the world. Her presentation on Detecting Sophisticated Assassination Plots, a Forensic Approach, had become required reading for protective agencies worldwide. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amira told the packed auditorium, "I want to share with you the story of how speaking Arabic in a moment of crisis saved a leader's life and exposed an international conspiracy that threatened regional stability." In the front row, Sheikh Ahmed listened with pride as Amira recounted their story, explaining how her background as a forensic toxicologist had enabled her to detect a poisoning plot that sophisticated security systems had missed. "The most important lesson from that evening," Amira continued, "is that threats often hide in plain sight, disguised as routine activities or trusted personnel. The assassin in our case wasn't a mysterious intruder or a suspicious outsider. He was a catering assistant who had spent months building a legitimate cover identity." She gestured toward a slide showing the molecular structure of the poison that had nearly killed Sheikh Ahmed. "This neurotoxin was specifically chosen because it mimics natural cardiac events, allowing the assassination to appear accidental even under medical examination. Only immediate chemical analysis revealed its artificial origins." But the broader message of Amira's presentation went beyond technical details about poison detection or security protocols. She spoke about the importance of empowering people at every level of society to recognize and report suspicious activities, regardless of their official position or social status. "In my case," Amira explained, "my background in forensic chemistry enabled me to identify a threat that others missed. But every person working in sensitive environments possesses unique perspectives and observations that could prove crucial for preventing attacks. The cleaning staff, maintenance workers, catering personnel, these individuals see details that security cameras miss and notice patterns that formal surveillance overlooks." After her presentation, as international security officials discussed implementing new protocols based on her recommendations, Amira reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her from anonymous refugee to globally recognized expert. Her discovery of the poisoning plot had indeed saved Sheikh Ahmed's life, but it had also transformed her own existence from one of fearful hiding to purposeful engagement with the world. The Arabic words she'd spoken in desperate urgency, "Hadhasam," had unlocked not just the truth about an assassination attempt, but her own ability to contribute meaningfully to global security and regional stability. Dr. Hassan, a young security analyst, approached after her presentation. "My government is interested in implementing your toxin detection protocols. Could you consult on developing training programs for our protective services?" Amira smiled, recognizing in the young woman's eagerness the same passion for forensic science that had driven her own career before tragedy forced her into exile. "Of course, but remember that the most sophisticated equipment is useless without people who are trained to notice what doesn't belong, to trust their instincts when something feels wrong." That evening, as Amira stood on the balcony of her Dubai apartment watching the sun set over the Persian Gulf, she felt her husband's presence in her heart, knowing that his death had not been meaningless if it had taught her the courage to speak truth when it mattered most. The cleaning lady who had murmured in Arabic about poison had become Dr. Amira Hassan again, but more importantly, she had learned that heroism often begins with the simple decision to care more about others' safety than one's own security. Her warning had saved Sheikh Ahmed's life, but his response had saved hers by providing her family with the protection and respect they'd been denied for 12 years. Hadda sum, those 2 words spoken in Arabic, had changed everything, proving that sometimes the most important conversations happen in native languages, delivered by people whose wisdom has been forged through personal tragedy and professional expertise. The Sheikh had indeed frozen in terror, but not just at the revelation of poison. He had been terrified by the realization of how close he had come to death, and how his survival had depended on the courage of someone whose value he had never recognized until she chose to risk everything to save his life. In the end, the cleaning lady's Arabic warning had exposed more than an assassination plot. It had revealed the truth that protection often comes from the most unexpected sources, and that wisdom and courage recognize no boundaries of social position, professional status, or personal circumstance. Sometimes the most important words are whispered by those the world has taught us to overlook, and sometimes salvation comes disguised as service, waiting for the moment when moral courage overcomes personal fear and truth finds its voice in whatever language the heart speaks best. 2 years after that fateful evening, Sheikh Ahmed stood before the United Nations General Assembly in New York, delivering a historic speech about regional cooperation and the fight against international terrorism. In the VIP gallery sat Dr. Amira Hassan, now serving as the UN Special Advisor on Chemical Weapons Detection, her expertise having helped prevent 17 assassination attempts across 6 countries. The network we exposed that night has been completely dismantled, Sheikh Ahmed told world leaders. But this victory came not from sophisticated intelligence agencies or advanced technology. It came from one brave woman who chose to speak truth in Arabic when silence would have been safer. The investigation following Khalil's arrest had unraveled a conspiracy reaching into multiple governments, resulting in international arrests and the prevention of a coordinated campaign to eliminate progressive leaders throughout the Middle East. Amira's split-second decision to shout her warning had literally changed the course of regional history. After the UN session, Sheikh Ahmed found Amira in the delegates' lounge, both of them marveling at how far they'd traveled from that terrifying moment when poison had nearly claimed his life. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had stayed silent that night," Sheikh Ahmed said thoughtfully. Amira smiled, her confidence now matching her expertise. "But I didn't stay silent, Your Highness, and that's what matters. My husband always said that evil succeeds when good people choose comfort over courage." That night, I finally understood what he meant. "Your Arabic saved more than my life," Sheikh Ahmed replied. "It saved our vision for the future." 3 months later, at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Dr. Amira Hassan Center for International Security in Dubai, she addressed a crowd that included her children, now young adults pursuing their own careers in science and diplomacy. Her son had just been accepted to medical school, while her daughter was studying international relations, both inspired by their mother's transformation from hidden refugee to global hero. That evening when I spoke Arabic in desperation, Amira told the audience, "I learned that sometimes the most important words we ever speak are the ones that scare us most to say. Hadasam, that's poison, changed everything because truth, spoken at the right moment, has the power to save lives and reshape history." As she cut the ribbon on the center that would train the next generation of security experts, Amira reflected on the profound truth she'd discovered. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something else matters more than our fear. The cleaning lady who murmured in Arabic had become a voice for international security, proving that heroism often comes disguised as ordinary people doing extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. Sheikh Ahmed had frozen in terror that night, but both their lives had been transformed by a woman brave enough to speak truth in her native language, when silence would have meant death. Sometimes the most important warnings come in whispers, and sometimes the person cleaning the room is actually saving the world, one carefully chosen Arabic word at a time.